Welcome back to Focal Point on the AFR Talk Network. Brian Fisher is my name. The program Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio, and the network is AFR Talk, the most feared, most dangerous radio network in all of America. Do not forget the AFA annual Cove Retreat coming up October 1 through 4. Still got time to make arrangements. This is the annual AFA Retreat to the Great Smoky Mountains at the Billy Graham Training Center at the Cove in Asheville, North Carolina. Absolutely spectacular setting there in the Smoky Mountains, an opportunity to retreat, to relax and refresh. You got Governor Mike Huckabee, Tim Wildman, the president of AFA, will be there, Christian financial expert Dan Celia, and apologist and author Alex McFarland will be there. Our own Rusty Benson will be leading worship. It'll be terrific gourmet meals, inspirational sessions. You don't want to miss it. For more information, you go to afr.net, afr.net to get all the information you need there, or you can call 800-950-2092, 800-950-2092. Speaking of illegal immigration, New York City, if you can believe it, they're going to spend $18 million to help illegal aliens break the law. They're going to spend $18 million to help illegal aliens find jobs and get driver's licenses. This $18 million is even going to provide legal services for them. So they are targeting illegal immigration, illegal aliens now for help. So that's what's going on in New York, $18 million to help folks break our laws. Speaking of Islam, Fort Collins, Colorado. Fort Collins, Colorado is on alert right now. There is an Islamic jihadist who has threatened Catholics and Mormons, said he's going to kill them over the next 2 weeks. Now, the guy that's made these threats, nobody has seen him since yesterday. Nobody knows where he's at, but he has put the Catholics and Mormons in Fort Collins, Colorado on notice that he is coming to kill them. And here's our catastrophic global warming alert for the day. For the fourth day in the last 5, the Antarctic has set a record for ice extent. In other words, the amount of ice that's in Antarctica, that has now set a daily record 4 times in the last 5 days. A record amount of ice extent for that day, 4 out of the last 5 days, new record in Antarctica. Catastrophic global warming alert for the day. Now, just a quick primer on American history. This is from Bill Federer, the American Minute. And again, this is just about historical accuracy. This isn't to promote the Republican Party, but it is to make the point that the Democratic Party claims to be the friend of the black community in America, but they historically have not been. And go back to 1857, the Supreme Court, 7 of the 9 justices in 1857 were Democrat, including the Chief Justice, Roger Taney. And the Supreme Court in 1857 ruled, 7 of the 9 were Democrats. They ruled that Dred Scott was not a person, not a citizen, but he was property, that he had no rights that the white man was bound to respect. Now, Chief Justice Roger Taney, he was a Democrat, appointed by a Democratic president, Andrew Jackson, and this is what he wrote, quote, "Slaves were so far inferior that the Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for their own benefit." So the official Democratic position in 1857 is slaves, African Americans, need to be in slavery for their own good. Now, the 13th Amendment, after the Civil War, was adopted in 1865. It abolished slavery in America. Now, almost immediately, Southern Democratic legislatures passed black codes and Jim Crow laws, basically to legalize segregation and perpetuate the institution of slavery, just calling it apprenticeship instead of slavery. Now, in 1866, Republican Congressman Thaddeus Stevens introduced legislation to give former slaves 40 acres and a mule. Democrats opposed it, And the leader of the opposition was the Democratic president, Andrew Johnson. Did not want to have these slaves given 40 acres of land that was owned by the federal government and a mule so they could start to farm for themselves. Now, in 1866, Republicans in Congress actually overrode the veto of Democratic President Andrew Johnson to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which conferred rights of citizenship on African Americans. Who did that? The Republican Party did that. They had to override the veto of a Democratic president to do that, but they did. Civil Rights Act of 1866, due to Republican energy, created rights of citizenship or conferred rights of citizenship on black Americans. Now, in the 14th Amendment was passed also in 1866, and this was to force the southern states to grant citizenship rights to freed slaves. The 14th Amendment, that's what grants rights of citizenship to freed slaves. Do you know how many Democrats voted against that thing in Congress? 100%. 100% of the Democrats in Congress voted against the 14th Amendment in 1866. Let me see if I can get to now the 15th Amendment. So 13th Amendment, let's just review this. 13th Amendment was passed through the pressure of Republicans. The Southern legislatures responded by passing Jim Crow laws to perpetuate segregation. The 14th Amendment was passed by Republicans, despite the fact that 100% of Democrats in Congress voted against it. And the 15th Amendment, this granted the right to vote to former slaves. It was passed in 1870. You know how many Democrats voted against it? 97%. So 100% of the Democrats in Congress voted against the 14th Amendment that granted citizenship to blacks. 97% of Democrats voted against the 15th Amendment in 1870 that granted the right to vote to former slaves. In 1871, the Republican Congress enacted the Ku Klux Klan Act, which outlawed Democratic Party-affiliated terrorist groups which oppressed African Americans. Ku Klux Klan was a Democratic Party effort, creation of Democrats in Congress. So that's just a little backstory to set the stage. The Democratic Party has not historically been the friend of black Americans. Now, Don Lemon, this is clip 5 and 6. Don Lemon is a black. He's on CNN. And remember, Bill O'Reilly got a lot of criticism a couple of weeks ago for having an honest conversation about race. Eric Holder said we got to have it. Barack Obama says we got to have it. Bill O'Reilly says, fine, let's have it. The major problem with the black community is out of wedlock births, the disruption, the breakdown of the African-American family. And Don Lemon here, he's a black, CNN, liberal media outlet, says Bill O'Reilly's only problem is that he didn't go far enough. Here's clip 1.
The reason there is so much violence and chaos in the black precincts is the disintegration of the African-American family.
He's got a point. In fact, he's got more than a point. Bill?
Raised without much structure, young black men often reject education and gravitate towards the street culture, drugs, hustling, gangs. Nobody forces them to do that. Again, it is a personal decision.
He is right about that too. But in my estimation, he doesn't go far enough. Because black people, if you really want to fix the problem, here's just 5 things that you should think about doing. Here's number 5. And if this doesn't apply to you, if you're not doing this, then it doesn't apply to you. I'm not talking about you. Here's number 5. Pull up your pants.
So that's a black guy saying, here's 5 tips for the blacks, black community. Number 5, first one on his list is pull up your pants. Then he goes through 4 and 3. I don't remember what they were, but then he gets to the number 2 and the number 1 priority pieces of counsel he has as a black working at CNN for the black community. Let's listen.
Number 2, finish school. You want to break the cycle of poverty? Stop telling kids they're acting white because they go to school or they speak proper English. A high school dropout makes on average $19,000 a year. A high school graduate makes $28,000 a year. A college graduate makes $51,000 a year. Over the course of a career, a college grad will make nearly $1 million more than a high school graduate. That's a lot of money. And number one, and probably the most important, just because you can have a baby, it doesn't mean you should, especially without planning for one or getting married first. More than 72% of children in the African American community are born out of wedlock. That means absent fathers. And the studies show that lack of a male role model is an express train right to prison. And the cycle continues.
All right, let's go to the phones. Let's grab a phone call before the break. Let's go to Eric in McGrove, Oklahoma. Eric, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Oh, Brian, I have so many things running through my mind here that would take me so long to do, and boy, I wish I could have about a half hour.
I know what you mean.
It's tough, but I'll do my best. Okay, on all this situation that you're talking about, let's take. I've just written down a bunch of notes, but divorce, for example, is it good for the state or bad for the state? It's good for the state. Homosexuality, good for the state. Weak families encourages, enables a strong central authority. Weak men encourages a strong central authority. And Brian, where does the problem in our moral composition fall to? I think it falls behind the pulpit. Now, not every man behind the pulpit. My father's been faithfully preaching the word since 1958, and at age 78, he continues to do so. But here's the deal. Let's take the issue of the breakdown of the home. The Scripture says in Psalm 113, verse 9, that He, that's God, He maketh the barren woman to keep house and to be a joyful mother of children. Titus chapter 2, verses 4 and 5. I love how this connects together. That they, the older women, may teach the younger women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands. Why? That the word of God be not blasphemed. Now, Brian, I've been in many different congregations, and at high school graduation, they call everybody, all the graduates up to ask, what are you going to do? In former days, the young ladies, they would be, well, I'm going to get married and be a keeper at home, a godly wife and a godly mother. But what they want to hear from all the children, boys and girls, is, I'm going to this college, I'm going to that college. And there's never a word said about the fact, there's never any encouragement whatsoever for the young men to be godly husbands and fathers, or the young women to be godly wives and mothers. No, it's what's your career going to be. And so we have bought the lie that the world has given us, feminism and the whole thing.
All right, Eric, listen, I'm sorry. I got to have to let you go. I got a hard break. Can't do anything about it. Great words, Eric. Appreciate what you're saying. Comment on Eric's comments when we get back. Focal Point AFA Talk.